Just wait for the little lip to come up. It's about, there we go. Edit the privacy, as we do on this little program. It's got to be a better way to do this, but anyway, fuck, I'll worry about it after the election, eh? We'll upgrade the quality of our content after we've had victory. Rightio, are we live? Now we are. Now we are very, very live, sir. Rightio.
Okay, g'day everybody. Tuesday night.
Tuesday night, Dean and Irv Spin Doctors. This will be fun.
Yeah, little election week soiree, and a little extra one just to deal with a little bit of misinformation that's already percolating through the community, unexpectedly not. My name's Anthony Irvine. I'm a councillor on Temora Shire Council currently, and I'm a candidate in the upcoming local government elections due to be held 14th of September, next Saturday.
Well, technically it's already being held because pre-polling's on, but my part of the disclaimer is I'm Dean McRae and I say what the hell I want. I represent myself when I'm here, and I make no apologies.
Well, I never got to that part of the disclaimer, so everything I say here are my views of mine alone, and not the views of Temora Shire Council. Surprise, surprise.
Now, another disclaimer. Anthony and I don't always agree on everything.
100%.
No,
100%.
no, not 100%. Sometimes, sometimes 80, 20.
Like, I do agree 100%.
We do have some varying policy points, that's for sure. But
yeah, we fight hard to preserve the right to have your own opinion in this world of wokeness and wankiness and what would you say, over governance, control freak, behaviour, and
authoritarianism.
Yeah, just complete control.
Yeah, it's pretty disheartening. And we might as well start with it. Marty Bushby apparently had a post, a fellow candidate, and I'm quite comfortable to say, Marty's got some policies that aren't my bag.
Yes.
We have some fundamental different policies, but to hear that one of the posts that he put up today on Temora Community Announcements, the Facebook group, regarding canola oils and its potential health. But Marty's a bit of a hippie. I think that's fair. Is it hippie the word? I like Marty. It's not an insult. It's just
I wouldn't say hippie's an environmentalist.
Environmentalist, sorry.
He's fairly well versed in that space. He has got some ideas that challenge
current narratives.
Well, what would you say? They challenge the broadacre monoculture type agriculture that some people derive an income and a living from. So there's a clash there.
Sure.
He seems to think that regenerative farming practices are probably going to be the way of the future, and he may be right long term.
Absolutely.
At the moment, we live in a broadly a rural area that most of the income that comes into the area, the imported income, is derived from broadacre large scale farming.
Absolutely, it is.
But so Marty's what would you say, his core beliefs do challenge some of those people, but I think everybody just has to take a deep breath and listen to both sides of the equation. I think Marty's got an obligation to certainly listen to the people who are actually generating that.
Who have just absolutely, and he's also got an obligation to stick to his principles that he's running on, though. If he's running, I think he should absolutely. These are the things that he should be supporting. And if he gets into council and there's a project that he doesn't agree with, I would hope that he could be grown up enough, and the other members of council would be grown up enough to go, well, actually, Marty, we agree with you on this, we'll vote with you on this. Or we disagree with you on this, we're not going to vote with you on that. And he still goes, well, I'd still like to be down on the paper, as I voted no for that. I voted against that. I voted against
this
that. Or I voted for that.
The new stuff that Honig's talking about, the Minister for Local Government, is about having freedom of political expression. So you will be able to, as long as you don't misrepresent the decision of council, then you are quite welcome to express your reasons for not voting for it and talk about your reasons for perhaps not supporting a particular motion.
I've been banging on about that.
At the moment, if you dare speak against council, then you'll have a code of conduct slapped upon you, and then they'll be saying things like you've been saying, disparaging comments about council. Well, how can you say that you don't agree with something is disparaging? Like it's
I
just,
don't agree with what you've put
but
forward.
disparaging such as broad term, which means basically that you say something that can be interpreted as a negative towards council. Well, yes, if they're making a dumb decision and you think they're making a dumb decision, and these are the reasons why, and they take that personally, well,
Shit happens.
Anyway, so I don't agree that. I did read the post. I didn't find anything offensive in it. There was nothing radical in it.
No.
And I think it's disappointing that he's been deplatformed.
I
But
agree.
fortunately, in this day and age, no one's deplatformed for long, as we can demonstrate. And if if these platforms didn't exist, the world would be a very sad place, because then you would have maximum misinformation and the power centralized with these newspaper editors and these other what would you
control
say?
freak sycophants. What? I didn't say that out loud, did I?
But just
No, in a monologue.
What would you say? Big media. So we're actually getting now. While we're on the subject of misinformation, unfortunately, in a flyer that came in the local paper last Thursday, there was a how to vote or some electoral material that was circulated by the mayor, who is standing for re-election. Now, there's a couple of pretty serious oversights, intentional or otherwise, on this information. Now, number one, they've spelt the graphic designer or the printers or whoever's put this together, from notes or otherwise. I don't know how the mistakes occurred, but they've spelt the name of a candidate wrong. Now, if you want to put electoral material out that's got some sort of a how to vote card, it's got to closely represent the ballot paper. So spelling a candidate's name wrong is a no-no. It's not allowed. So, and the person whose name actually happened to get spelt wrong was yourself, but it's not the first time. The newspaper gets it wrong
every second week when they do an article calling me names. Every second week they'll get the right seal. They'll maybe do an EA, maybe whatever.
Electoral material, there are tight rules around it, so that's a bit of a boo-boo.
That's a pretty big boo-boo, but it is his rookie year. He's never done this before.
This is the problem. The more experience you've got, the less
acceptable it is for you to be failing in the basics.
Yes, and the less you can just say, I didn't know about that.
You can make rookie mistakes when you're a rookie. You can't do it when you're a 25-year councillor. How long has it been?
He's been on the council. The man's been on the council, I think, since 2000. I think he's been mayor since about 2012. So 2000, 2004, 2008, 2012, 2016, 2020, 2024. So if he'd been successful every time, he's up to his 7th campaign. So he should know the rules by now.
And you should be able to spell your opposing candidates' names right. It's not that hard. It's on the electoral.
But there's copies of the actual ballot paper that candidates can actually
cut and paste and put it on the thing. Yeah. No.
So
it's quite a simple process, really.
Yeah. Well, anyway, for some. But it
isn't brain surgery, and it isn't anywhere near as complicated as people.
But the more concerning part is the fact that the fine print at the bottom actually it contains the gross misinformation, and the misinformation is: please remember to number your preferences from 1 to 9, or your vote may not count,
which is completely false.
That is totally untrue. A valid vote in the tomorrow local government elections, you must number candidates from 1 to 5. If you put a 1 in one square and don't continue on and put a 2, 3, a 4 and a 5 in other squares, your vote will be deemed
null and void,
ineligible.
In the bin.
So it'll be invalid. So you have to number candidates 1 to 5. At that point, if you don't think there's any more candidates worthy of your vote, you don't have to vote any further. You don't have to put any more on. So,
but if you do wish to go the full length and rank everybody, you're perfectly entitled to do so.
You can go through and you can put 1 to 14, I think, if you...
Yeah. Well, there's 14 candidates, obviously. Just
15.
15 candidates in tomorrow. Obviously, there are people who watch this program in other LGAs, but
15.
As it works for here in
Yeah.
Temora, you could put 1 to 15, you can put 1 to 9 if you want to, or you can put 1 to 5. But
So-
to try to intimate that you must put 1 to 9 is untrue.
It is. Now, from the Electoral Commission's website, it says electoral material must not contain directions about how to vote that are inconsistent with the instructions on the ballot paper, or material that could result in a voter casting an informal vote.
Yeah.
So
If
if someone was to number following these directions 1 to 9, they will fulfil the requirements, but they don't have to vote 1 to 9.
Yes.
So
all 25 people who bought the Hit Job Herald, I mean, the Temora Independent this week and got that in the middle, you can disregard that as a little bit of nonsense and some disinformation. To
Yes.
anybody who received this in the letterbox, please understand that no, you don't have to vote 1 to 9. You can vote 1 to 5.
and don't be confused when you get in the booth and it says 1 to 5.
And I do still unreservedly support your right to put a donkey vote if you really want to. I don't endorse it, but if you want to do that, you do it. That's on you. But if you're doing that because you think some are complete wankers and some are not, or whatever, or your vote won't matter, just remember that if you do like somebody on there, it's probably better to help that somebody by giving them the 1 vote and then finding the less offensive candidates that you find in your opinion, and adding there so that at least the vote for the candidate you do like counts. Because otherwise your vote is a waste and it misses out, and the candidate you like will suffer, miss those few votes. So
Yeah, so
which would be disappointing.
the misinformation rolls on, and here we are, 5 days out, and there's still misinformation rolling through the community to that effect. So that's really disappointing. So anyone who got that form would have sat there and gone, I've got to pick 9 out here.
Yeah, and I can tell you, not a lot of people can pick 9 out of there. From one people I've been speaking to, they're going, "Oh, who do I pick?"
Yes, well,
and it's a tough decision, and it's not even me being an asshole. There are some people there I don't know that well. There are some people there I don't know their motivation. Some I do know really well, and I think, and there are also people there who I think, okay, some of that experience may be valuable, but it depends on what sort of a working capacity and who's willing to work with who once the dust settles. I know I'm quite comfortable, and I said this after Thursday night's party the other night. What was it, the teabag thing? I reckon I could pick something from every single candidate I saw and go, I can work with you on this project and probably support you on that little part there. I could support somebody on that one there. When you ask me to support that, I'm going to vote no.
Well, that's
whether people feel the same way and are willing to do the same whether people are willing to do that reciprocally, I don't know.
And the information that doesn't come out of the chamber is the amount of influence I've had on a lot of decisions. And if you put common sense in front of most people and argue it sensibly, they won't.
And you are
go against it. And honestly, 99% of this stuff is common sense.
Yep.
So you sit there, you go through the common sense. The amount of times that people have just agreed point blank with what I've put forward.
Yes.
But it doesn't get put forward that way. I'm the troublemaker. I'm the one causing all. If I get elected, people are going to quit their jobs at council.
Okay,
bullshit. That's absolute bullshit. If I get elected, which I'm still a current sitting councillor. Well,
bye. There's the door. Don't let it hit you on the bum on the way out.
There's been the usual natural attrition, but I cannot think of anyone who has actually left this since I've been on council, citing me being there as the reason.
It's like all the lunatics that were going to pack up and move to Canada if Donald Trump got elected. They're all still there, clapping on
and if they can't handle the expectation that you have to try not to do something wrong, but if something
do
wrong,
your best work and put your best,
and if you do something wrong, you've got to put your hand up, you've got to own it, then you've got to take whatever actions necessary to rectify it as quickly and as what do they call it? They call it
community service.
No, there's a term to return it to as close a state as it was before the mistake.
Oh, right.
Anyway, I can't think it's off the top of my head. But anyway, that's fundamentally it. So, look, regardless of who gets elected next Saturday, it's going to take close to the end of the month until
everybody's across the line.
And if they've got to count all the postal votes, they've got to then do all the preferences. And
And just because I know how Australians think, they go, well, who do your preferences go for? We don't control preferences. I've said it over and over ad nauseum in a million elections now. You control the preferences when you number those boxes. So you control them. If you only want your preferences to go as far as 5, you vote that way. If if you want 9, if you want 15, you need to number those boxes. You have the final control over where the preferences go. There's not a box I tick that says, right, well, if I'm at this point, Anthony Irvine gets whatever I've got left over or down the trough. Obviously, there's some natural flow whereby I suspect a few people will vote 1 and 2 in whatever order with you and I, based on just natural vibe. And I'm sure there will be with some of the other current councillors, there'll be some natural vibe where they'll sort of preferences will flow sort of naturally towards one to the other until they get over the line. That's sort of how it works.
Well, and you've got to go back and look at was it Nigel John Ken Smith, I think, spoke a little bit about how preferences work at the candidates forum at the club Thursday night, and he basically said you need to get 3 2 votes, I think, to equal a 1 vote, and then you have to get 5 3 votes, and it was very complex the way it worked.
Well, and it is very complex because they wouldn't want our political system to be really, really simple. Because that'd be too hard.
We've seen elections in Temora where people have received
80, 90 votes, and
80 or 90 first preference votes, and even if the preferences weren't enough to get them elected, basically they just keep eliminating candidates that cannot get elected until they get down to the 9 that they have to have.
The 9, yeah.
So you know what I mean? It's a very funny setup where someone can get 1,500 votes and someone can get elected on 90, and they sit on the chamber in the chamber as equals.
Yeah, but
that's how it works.
That's the system, and that's what it is. And
yeah, so
and I made a comment the other day. Look, whoever gets the most primary votes in this election, I'm not going to oppose them putting their hand up and saying they want to be mayor, because I think it's a fairly justifiable claim to make. If you get the most votes, I hope, like God, it's not going to be me. I'd have nightmares if that were the case. I mean, I'd like to wear the clock and the funny hat and all that sort of stuff.
The funny part is, though, that if the chamber considers that the individual that does get the most votes probably isn't the suitable character, well,
I've been
the way it is set up,
yeah,
they can actually vote that way, and it will come down again to another vote within the chamber. So that's a long way down.
That's a long way down the track. It's a long
process.
But saying that, you've been in the room now. Jenny has just asked, what's the process for voting in the mayor?
Well, some councils you actually vote for the mayor at the local government elections on Saturday.
Yep. People can nominate as a mayoral candidate as opposed to but that's not our little electorate.
In Temora, the mayor is elected by the councillors. So after the election, you'll have 9 councillors elected. Then they go into the room. They have their discussions, a bit of horse trading, whatever it might be. They have a vote. They'll elect a mayor and a deputy mayor from within the councillors, and it's elected by the councillors. I think that gets reviewed every 2 years and they get re-elected. So it's a 2-year term. Now, if we were to change that in Temora, it has to go to a referendum. So if that was to ever change, we'd have to be actually voting on it as a community to revert it back to a popularly elected mayor. Now, there's a couple of different ways to look at it. When you look at the way the mayor in Temora actually monopolises the good publicity from the council gig that he's got, then it'd be an absolute shoo-in for him to rig it so that if he was popularly elected, basically he'd just do what he normally does, is basically just make sure that no other candidate gets any press.
Unless it's negative press.
Well, yeah, no credit for anything, and monopolise all of the goodness. Now, it's at the point now, and we've experienced it just recently over the weekend, where some comments were made by a local tradesman that extra compliance that he was having to comply with, that was actually a prerequisite of the Department of Planning. He was saying that was due to me.
Yes, that was the discussion that I had.
That's absurd.
It is absurd.
But
I've got a couple of views on that, because, as you know, I'd like to abolish most of the Department of Planning. You think that they hold a fairly valuable role. I think generally it's overvalued.
The only reason that a Department of Planning can exist and these laws are required is because people have done stupid stuff and they've impinged upon the rights of others. Now, unfortunately, that requires someone to come in and arbit in that space and go, look, you're being a muppet. We're going to have to make a rule that says you can't, build your fence 27 feet high. Blah, 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 and block off someone's views. There's all these, and then it just becomes tit for tat, and away the lawyers go. And once the lawyers get involved,
they're doing it anyway. Mate, here's a question from Bob Taylor. Can you tell me why you didn't put your profiles forward in the local paper? It would have been nice to read a few words from you both. Mate, I'll give you my personal was, one, they've done multiple hit jobs. I was quite happy.
That's the same for me.
But I was perfectly happy to cop the first hit job on the chin. By the second, third, and fourth, I kind of went, right, gloves are off. I'm not participating with these clowns. Second, I received an email from the paper with the audacity to ask me for advertising money to promote my campaign, which I don't know if anybody's noticed, but I haven't produced any materials because I'm not doing that. And then for that money that I was expected or, encouraged to spend, I would get 150 words in a profile in the local paper. I figured they've done enough writing about me, and I'm not giving them one bit of generosity back, and I'm certainly not paying for the privilege.
No,
they get nothing from me that they don't steal off my Facebook page or they don't get off my rap sheet and that they don't make up. So that's all I'm willing to give the local paper. Most people now locally, if they're looking to see what Councillor Irvine and I have to say about anything, one, they'll ring us directly because we're pretty easy to get hold of. Two, they'll watch this program, Bird, on a Thursday night, or this is a bit of a special one just because it's election week and we thought we'd throw in an extra hour, double down a bit. And the other side of it is, between my Facebook pages, all my stuff is public. So I'm very easy I'm so transparent, it's not funny, Bob. I just refuse to give that newspaper any money. I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to give them advertising dollars. If they want to sell papers off my back, they're going to have to do it in their usual underhanded manner. They're on my shit list, and that's where they're going to stay.
Well, and the same thing applies. I just go back to the last election where the Friday before the Saturday election, the editor who really does an opinion piece or an editorial managed to put a whole front page column down the right-hand side of the newspaper telling everyone in Temora not to vote for me. So ever since then,
the editor's made it clear where his stance is and where his loyalties lie, and that's fine.
When they send me
but I'm not giving
the opportunity to actually fill their paper with some content, no. And I'm sick and tired of their BS that they roll out on a regular basis. The misinformation that comes out of that thing's horrendous, and they're just off the charts. I really enjoyed reading Wendy McCrone's letter to the editor recently, and I thought it was a very fair and reasoned piece.
And
I was out of frustration just due to the BS that this mob are rolling out. So
Wendy's highly credible and respectful and respectable, and the
best part is because we've got these other platforms. There's no necessity anymore to give.
The paper's dead in the water, and I'm going to let it continue to die.
Was a respectable, reasoned, and even
if it was a balanced, even-handed newspaper, I wouldn't have had a problem.
It was the same reason that I went down and participated in the teabag thing on Thursday night, because it was a fair and open forum.
And they were great.
And there was no bias. I thought they managed it quite well. The fact that the order that the participants
come out of a hat. Great, beautiful.
Everyone had 3 minutes, and they were quite strict on that.
Yep.
I would have liked to see some questions come from the floor, but as the organisers pointed out, if we do that, then this could get long-winded.
It would get very messy, and that's when arguably, let's be fair, nobody's going to. If we're going to have a debate with that list of candidates in any forum, we probably need town hall, and we probably need to start at about 8 o'clock in the morning, and we'll be there at midnight still debating.
So there would have been, there would have had to be still to fit 15 candidates in with a 3-minute each. There's your 45, so there's an hour. And then if you wanted to open up the questions, what are you going to do? One question, one answer. That's another 3 minutes for each person. So there's another hour. All of a sudden, to get anything meaningful done, you did need to have a significant period of time. Perhaps, if you were going to do that again, you might have an introductory forum. Then you might have the ability for people to, say, send in some questions.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I've been at candidates forums where you sort of, there's arguably 10 questions over a X amount of period. Everyone gets 1 minute to answer,
yes,
and you cycle
can.
through as quick as you can. But, how much can you really sell of either yourself or your policies in 1 minute?
No.
In the political space, and
That's the
I've
beautiful
been
thing.
involved in it a long time. Elevator pitches are a big thing.
Yeah.
How quickly can you sell what you believe in if you're in an elevator with somebody? Obviously, we don't have any
But we don't need to do so much here because people have the opportunity. We interact with each other on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
And there's enough material out there. I just go back to
I make myself as public as possible, so anybody who does have questions or want to know what I believe, how I believe, or how I'll vote on things is I'm ready.
Everyone knows that the last time I campaigned, the first election that I contested, I campaigned on a platform of accountability and transparency. Well, for the last term of council, that's what I've done.
Yep.
Accountability and transparency. It's led to some very uncomfortable interactions and some really long-winded and difficult processes to actually extract the information that is rightfully the community's. But the community can only sit there and say, we've got access to this information on the back of my hard work. And I'm going to keep doing that.
Yep.
That's what I do. I'm not going to sit there and let them just go, we're not telling you. Bullshit.
Mate, and I've made this comment. My phone's been pretty busy. My phone's usually busy, but election time, whether it's state, federal, whatever, it's always busier. I've had multiple phone calls today and people want to know, what about this and what about that? And what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah.
I said, well, I haven't seen, I've seen the deed of separation, which has caused an awful lot of this angst.
Yes.
When you first asked for it, now you were an elected member of council and you asked for a document that's a council document regarding council funds as a representative of the community
by the governing body on behalf of the residents and ratepayers of Temora.
As an elected representative. Now, had you come out of that meeting and when I looked at it, it's all above board, I would have went, well, that's the end of that discussion. No problem, not a problem at all, because that's why I gave you my vote last time, and I would have been cool. No, nothing to see here. All right, that's good enough for me. Had I don't know, somebody asked the same question of any of the other councillors and got, oh, no, it's all good, I assume they went away happy and went, that's cool, not a problem. But the fact that you weren't happy with it, me as a guy who voted for you.
The fact that they wouldn't let me see it without signing
you weren't
an
happy.
Additional confidentiality obligation.
Yes, and you weren't happy with that result.
So
from we the public, screen was, hang on, one of the councillors who was duly elected is asking questions and being stonewalled. Now, not every community member really gives it a toss.
No.
And that's fair and reasonable. But
for the ones who do.
But when you mentioned it to me, I went, hang on. They lawyered up straight away. That pissed me off. Because you're the guy elected to deal with that shit. You go and deal with it. If you tell me everything's sweet, to a degree, I'm going to go, all right, cool.
And the thing was, I had to sign, in order to view this document, they wanted me to sign an additional confidentiality undertaking. Now, as part of being a councillor, I deal with every meeting. We've got confidential stuff that we deal with.
Yep.
So,
sure.
Can you please explain to me the different degrees of confidentiality?
Yes. Why is this?
No, there is no different degrees of confidentiality.
Well, there's ones you're going to sign an extra
if
document.
I've got the clearance, I've got the clearance.
Yeah.
So, and there would be people in the room who've seen that document and haven't signed the confidentiality waiver.
Yeah.
So it was oppressive, it was unfair, it was unnecessary, and it did also smack of a cover-up. So obviously,
and when that became known to me, I guess, guys, that was when I said, "Can we come on the radio show?"
Yes,
mate, I'm happy enough for you to talk about it because one, I think if it's true, it should be true. If it shouldn't be hidden from the councils, and if it's being hidden from the councils, what else has been hidden from the public? Maybe I'm a skeptic, but that's.
But even when you go back to our friend at the newspaper, who was quite happy to publish all of the financial details of the past 6 years
of your business,
of my business, that was provided by the mayor and the previous general manager.
Yeah.
In the lead up to the last election, he was only too happy to print that and spread that across the pages of the paper.
Absolutely.
But here we are talking about another financial arrangement,
which is a very, very
the governing body and the ex-general manager, and no one's allowed to know anything about it.
Well, mate, look,
how can that be fair?
Well, one is it's not fair. Two, it's obviously there's something dishonest happening. You don't lawyer up.
No. You can't assume that. You can't make that. But
I can,
sure.
as a member of the public who heard
No.
that I can go in my brain. I went, there's something dodgy here being covered up. That's the first thing I thought.
It's something that they're not. They might be embarrassed by. You
Dodgy,
can't say,
embarrassed,
yeah.
shonky, whatever you want to call it. You know, like
And so far
everybody has their private stuff, and private's one thing. But when you're being paid by the ratepayer, and our rates are going up, I'm told, not for long. If I get in there, I'll be banging them back best I can.
Yeah.
I'll be upsetting people left, right, and centre. But that was what triggered me to step in and kind of go. And I'd mentioned to the mayor, 2018, I think it was, when I first moved back to town, and he and I had a bit of a chat. And I'd sort of said to him, you know, or he actually said to me, did I have any intentions or ambitions of local politics? And I made it fairly clear that I didn't, unless I was given a reason.
Well,
and I figured this is a good enough.
This is the whole thing. I'm quite happy. I don't really think. Look, there's a lot of things I would rather be doing than going to a council meeting. You know,
absolutely.
And the only reason I'm in the room is because I don't think that they were doing things properly.
Yeah.
I've had multiple discussions with the mayor, and I'm at the point now where I don't believe his actions align with his words. And that was really, you know, that's where I just got to the point. I said, look, we're getting nowhere here. You keep telling me
one thing and doing
one
the
thing
opposite.
and doing something completely different. So
yeah,
there's not much point us continuing these conversations. And it was at that point that I said, all right, well,
and look, and I've
got to step in.
A lot of people have said to me over this last, certainly, few weeks as things have been ramping up and getting excited, God, we wish you would be a bit more politically correct when you talk. We wish you would shine up. I've got the same feedback for 15 years in the political space. Just shine up here, just agree to that. We'll turn you into more of a statesman. And I go, I can't be, I guess, the force in the space that I kind of am naturally and honestly, if I do become something that I'm not. And I'm not a statesman. I don't have any political ambitions, which sounds really weird when you run for office on occasion. But I just feel like these machines need accountability. And unless they've got some bastard like me in there who's willing to go, or some bastard like you going, hang on, that doesn't pass any pub test anywhere. What the hell's going on here? You know, that's and that's all
it's about. And I think the people of Temora, I think it's disrespectful. There's a lot of intelligent, sensible people in Temora, and I think keeping secrets from them about their own business and their own money and their own council is ridiculous.
Absolutely.
You know, it's condescending. It's poor governance. So I believe that good government is open and transparent and accountable government. And I don't believe that we're getting that at the moment. I think it's an improvement. I think I've made some headway in that space. And I think I have opened up the conversation. And I have also backed up a lot of the bullying that I think people who've tried to expose this. And I've withstood 4 codes of conduct. I've withstood a lot of attacks on my reputation and a lot of attacks on my business, a lot of personal attacks on my credibility. And said all of that.
Well, you should. You've been in business here for 30 years. You've never had a drama until you became a councillor and started asking questions.
Yes, and it's really disgusting that people who I've had good, long-standing business relations with vote with their checkbook and they choose to not do business with anymore because of some misinformation that they've chosen to believe because it stimulates them. Or, you know what I mean? Like, it's.
If you think I'm an arsehole and don't want to deal with me, I can live with that. But if
come and see me and get the facts.
Yeah, if you think I'm an arsehole because of something you've heard that may or may not be factual, well, then we might have a problem.
Come and see me and get the facts, because I'm telling you, I'm still on council. They haven't rubbed me out. They've thrown the kitchen sink at me. So what's it tell you? There's nothing in it.
No.
So,
and if they had something on you untoward, they absolutely would have thrown it out. So far, they've said that you hurt people's feelings. Well, mean tweets are not a thing. Andrew here, it's going to be an even emptier newspaper if one of you becomes mayor. God, mate, heaven forbid. But I can tell you, the bastard part of my personality, I will be passing motions left, right, and centre that suggest that the Temora Shire Council, if I'm mayor, and if I can get the support of all the other councillors or enough to get the majority, we'll be pulling advertising from that little rag all day long. Now, I'll obviously need to convince people to support that motion.
No, I think there's certainly a role for the newspaper in the community.
Yes, but we need toilet paper, and we need the
truth.
Well, that's
as close to the truth.
We're not going to get that out of that.
There have been situations where there have been serious matters that have been, say, before the courts in Temora that haven't appeared in the newspaper, and yet they'll travel far afield to bring
stories from Wagga,
or wherever else they may be.
Wherever look, here's my bottom line on it regarding that. My natural entrepreneur side says, if there are any budding journalists out there who have a bit of integrity that would like to, I don't know, perhaps create something new. I know I've joked.
Put it this way.
I will support it. Absolutely. I'll find some money and put some money behind it. I'll find some folks that'll help leverage it. We'll create another newspaper.
There is only
it won't worry me.
room in the space for alternative media when the mainstream media keep dropping the ball.
Oh, absolutely.
If the mainstream media were doing their job,
if they
we wouldn't be here.
If they weren't disingenuous cowards who made up shit as they went along here, you and I, the same as politicians, you and I wouldn't be here. Bob, appreciates our clarity on that. Can you reiterate your stance on heavy vehicles through town and what alternatives you would look at if Hoskins Street becomes a no-go for those vehicles? You were the only councillor that put forward any proposal for the heavy vehicle bypass.
And let me just flesh that out. The only hope that I could see with the budgetary constraints and the road network as it exists was to use predominantly existing roadways to try and divert heavy vehicles out of Hoskins Street. Now, I came up with a proposal. I spoke to affected landowners and I managed to get some very early stage in principle agreement from some landowners that would allow some small connecting trunk roads to be put in place, and they would actually allow us to get heavy vehicles out of the main street. Now, I was howled down. There was a great backlash from the people in the area that would have been affected, and I understand that. But my job isn't to appease a small minority. My job is to come up with the best solution for the majority. Now, that was a solution and it would have worked had it had support. I don't think it's dead in the water, and I still really do think that if Temora wants to do something in the medium term, that's about the only way they're going to get around it. Because when you look at the big bypass projects that are in play at the moment, Parks has got a bypass, a one-direction bypass, a north-south, which is the Newell Highway going through Parks.
Yep.
It's going to cost nearly $300 million. Now, it's a national highway. Parks is a significant population.
How many are in Parks?
I don't know. I'd have to say 10,000 off the top of my head. But look, we need to know that while we're talking.
It is a factor.
While we're talking about that, so just think on that. So we've got a national highway and a population in Parks, 14,256. So 14,500 people compared to Temora, 4,500. Okay, now they're committing 300 million or 285 million, I think the build is at the moment.
Yeah.
So that's one bypass, and that's a national highway. Here we are on a state road.
Yep.
So we're on a state road. We've got a third of the population.
Yeah. And let's not forget, most state governments are pretty close to
a third of, like, we would have significantly less heavy vehicles compared to the national highway, Newell Highway route that's going through Parks.
Yeah.
So all of these factors will be weighed up by Transport for New South Wales, the state government, the federal government, when we're going cap in hand.
Yeah, for sure.
To try and get funding. And that's why there's been no progress in this space. But even to the point where we can't actually give, we need to, if we're going to have a heavy vehicle bypass, we need to actually settle on where it's going to go and actually start pegging it out so that future development doesn't then hamstring that project.
Yes.
Like, what's the point of going and building a new subdivision of housing and then find out that, oh no, that parcel of land that would have been ideal for the heavy vehicle bypass? Like, that's just poor planning, isn't it?
Well, that's right.
So Singleton have got a bypass going in there. I think it's about 10 kilometres, and I think it's something approaching, off the top of the head, it's something like $700 or $800 million.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So we're talking about $70 million a K. So, these things don't come cheap. The one in Temora, who knows? When you look at the topography, we've got hills, we've got airports, we've got existing townships. How do you go about it? Someone's going to be majorly disaffected here.
Somebody's absolutely going to be put out. There's no non-victor.
So that's so either and this is the big, either come up with a workable solution in the medium term, or get used to having heavy vehicles in Hoskin Street. Now, we've just had a proposal to do up the northern block and the southern block of Hoskin Street, either side of the two central CBD blocks.
Yeah.
Now, the proposal is to narrow, like widen the footpaths, narrow the carriageway, or not narrow the carriageway, but reduce the amount of space between the rear of the parked cars and the carriageway.
Yep.
And to my mind, put some more trees and planters and stuff like that, which makes it a little bit harder to see pedestrians, a little bit harder to navigate for the heavy vehicle operators. It basically clutters up the roadway.
Yeah.
So we haven't got a heavy vehicle alternative. We haven't got anything that we're going to get the trucks out of the main street. Plus, we're cluttering up the main street.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. If you want to narrow the main street and make it more pedestrian friendly, do that after we've got the heavy vehicle bypass in place. But at the moment, in the absence of a heavy vehicle bypass, Hoskin Street is it. So we need to be actually taking every move we can to open up Hoskin Street and make it more trafficable for heavy vehicles.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't say I go to a lot of cafes these days, but I can't imagine it'd be real nice sitting there having a latte or whatever it is people do these days, and cattle truck comes by and a big wad of cow manure.
The shopkeepers have got, I can't think of anything really nice about sitting there slurping a cup of coffee on a 40-degree day with blowflies annoying you and all the rest of it, when there is a comfortable air-conditioned space. Yeah, it's up to the businesses to provide the amenity and make it attractive for the patronage.
Sure.
So if it's going to work, it's going to work. If it's not, it's not. Like, people have got the ability to do up the spaces at the rear of their premises, into courtyards and comfortable oasis away from the noise and the dust and the smells that the heavy vehicles bring. So, there's a lot of scope there for people to develop these alternatives to.
For sure.
It frustrates me where people want to build something like a Lygon Street in Melbourne or something like that. Lygon Street hasn't got trucks going up and down it.
I can imagine. I can't say about Melbourne all that often.
There's
too many Victorians.
A few hot hatches with the doof going, and the boys chucking a few laps, but you know what I mean. They haven't got, like, you've only got to get out a little bit further west, and they're using road trains on the main roads, and we're not that far off having road trains. Well, a road train got hung up.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that work.
Hoskin, well, a bit of gardening to be done. He had to disconnect the prime mover, disconnect the trailer. It took him a couple of hours to actually get it off the roundabout and get it free and clear and out of
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. Like, here we are. We've got Hoskin Street can only do so much, and whilst it's got to have heavy vehicles in it, I think we should make it as heavy vehicle user friendly for the operators and for as safe as we can for the community as we can.
Yeah.
Until we've got an alternative.
No, fair. Sounds fair. This one will be fun. I'm a free speech. Obviously, a YouTube user who doesn't have the cojones to go by a name. Typical. I haven't asked anybody to vote for me ever. It looks like somebody's looking for some sex advice. If you can't get the job done, big fella, that would be a failure on your part. Tell her to give me a call. I'll see if I can help her out. But, again, my life's not a secret. I don't know why you're so enthused about it. But vote for whoever you like. I've advertised that over and over again. But if you had some balls, you'd do it under your own name. Bob Taylor, can you inform me of Temora Shire Council's present budget and how you would make more savings? I can't fill you in on the current budget, but Councillor Irvine may be able to give some idea where it's at and what it looks like roughly.
Well, from where I sit, stop resisting requests for information and engaging George Street lawyers to represent yourself in proceedings at NCAT. That'd be a significant saving.
I can't wait to see how much that's going to be.
Engaging code of conduct investigators we've already saw that it was almost 30 grand's worth last year.
Yep.
And I think the figures for that will come out again in September. This year they have to be reported to the OLG, so that'll make some interesting reading because they've been active in that space. So there's round figures. It could be 100 grand that they could have saved there. I think the budget is in deficit. I think there was a small surplus, but there's been a couple of tax rulings, and I think there was a couple of grants that haven't come through to the fullness that they'd hoped, which has pushed the current budget into deficit. One thing that I put forward, Bob, if it's any help, was I don't believe councillors should draw a red cent until they can deliver a balanced budget and a surplus budget. So currently the individual councillors get about 12 grand a year. So there's 9 councillors. There's 108 grand straight off the top.
Yeah.
And then the mayor gets an additional, I think he gets something approaching 18 grand. I think his package comes out at about 30 grand, including his councillor fees. And look,
fees.
Well, you get your councillor fees, which is
it's
about $250 a week ballpark.
Yeah.
A little bit less. But, people who are doing the job to any level are certainly committing significant amounts of their own time.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's not a 5-minute job.
Like I say, I believe that no councillor should draw a red cent out of the thing unless they're delivering a surplus budget, number one. So there's 108 grand plus your mayor's. There's your probably 120 grand straight off the top you could save tomorrow. And stop engaging George Street lawyers for NCAT matters when they are really just GIPA freedom of information requests. And stop rushing off to engage code of conduct investigators for the most trivial and frivolous matters that are. When all this stuff comes out, Bob, you will shake your head at the waste and the stupidity of some of these undertakings. It's just mind-boggling. Then you've got a lot of programs that council are running. Now, the best example of a community group that's come forward recently to help themselves and to help council is the members of TADVAC, which are Temora Art. TADVAC, I don't know what the acronym stands for, but it's basically their art community that operates out of the Temora Art Centre in the old Scout building in, what street is it? Can't tell you what street it's in. Anyway, it's down near the rec centre. So they've come on board to do voluntary cleaning.
Yep.
And council don't have to engage contractors. That's going to lead to a significant saving, and that means that there will be a small operating surplus from that enterprise as opposed to a loss.
Yep.
All of a sudden, that's the community taking ownership of what they like to do, helping council out with some of the costs. Council have got a manager there. The manager will be responsible for making sure that the cleaning's done to a standard. I think it's a win-win.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things straight off. Now, they're only small matters, but they're all matters, and it's all taking care of the small stuff. The big stuff looks after itself.
Yeah. Look, and I mean, I haven't seen the budgets, but generally I see them as bloated, and I'm a bit extreme in the space of how much money I'd like to save and exactly what I don't think council should be involved in. But as I had a discussion with somebody today, if I'm a voice in there going, let's bring it back, and on certain projects I get wins, great. I really am committed to the idea of making the naming rights of council-owned buildings and properties advertising space. I've said it before, and I'm just pulling companies out of a hat. Don't think you're going to sue me because I'm not suggesting any contracts have been put in place. But Woolworths is mentioned here by Macca regarding the block out front. For example, Woolworths Stadium, if Woolworths wanted to sponsor, and you basically set up a 2-year leasing agreement with any company that puts forward tender for a certain amount of money, we would have to work out what that money is to cover a certain amount of operating costs of said asset. Council retains the ownership of the asset, but that company has the opportunity to step in and turn, for example, the swimming pool or the stadium or Nixon Park or the Temora soccer ground or, Gloucester Park, whatever. But it gives companies the opportunity to put their money where their mouth is and incentivizes them to invest into the community, as opposed to councillors and council just going, well, we're going to increase your rates because the cost of lawn mowing has gone up. I would rather see it go the other way, where private business has a real incentive to go, okay, well, we get all this advertising space on the side of the stadium, for example. We get all the goodwill from a non-biased newspaper that's going to show us love, whatever goodwill media comes out of it. And for that, there is an annual fee over the two-year cost. And that may be a case of maybe Woolworths don't want to hire people to do it. So they keep, that doesn't mean that the parks and gardens of tomorrow are going to lose their jobs. They just get paid from a different source. The money comes via private enterprise, as opposed to forcing ratepayers to pay for stuff. There's an awful lot of elderly folk in this town who may or may not have any interest whatsoever in spending money on, for example, the stadium or Nixon Park or whatever the case may be. And I don't feel like their rates need to go towards that sort of thing if they don't want it to be, if there's an opportunity to rethink it and do stuff differently.
Yeah, and look, all of those things would be discussed, and in a room where you've got representation of the whole community via 9 councillors, all of these things
you can flesh those things out. Yeah,
so,
arguably, if I was to, if I ended up on this bloody council, I would actually put that up. I'd spend quite a lot of time putting together in a portfolio. I've got broad stroke design on how I think it could work and how I think it should work. But obviously, I would have to submit it to all the other councils. Say, hey guys, what do you think about this? Because I'm super transparent, can't help myself.
It won't fly without enough support. So
that's right. But I'd be rolling it out, and if companies thought it was a good idea, because I'd be submitting it to all the businesses in town, saying, would you be interested in, for example, and again, just pulling a business out of my backside. One of the new pubs decides every summer they for the next 2 years they want to sign onto a contract for, and probably maybe let's not say the pub because I was about to say the slide at the pool, so we don't want to be advertising booze to kids. Apparently, as mentioned, I've had a few issues in that area. But let's say one of the local gyms decides that it wants to advertise to kids, so it does. It takes over the sponsorship or the naming rights for the water slide, for example. And with that cost, the maintenance costs, the upkeep, need to meet a standard like any rental agreement. And it's going to cost X amount over 2 years to do that. And this is how that particular asset is leased, arguably, to that business. If there's enough support for it, and it adds up, and all the councils go, what a great idea, let's try it. Maybe we go, okay, let's try it on these assets first, or and just see what's what. Play it a bit like a monopoly board, but I think it could work. And Bob, in all honesty, mate, I think that could absolutely save a heap of dough and for ratepayers.
And council have to continually address the key objectives, pretty much. And it was pointed out at the candidates night at the club Thursday night. Council put together a strategic plan, then they have to resource and staff to undertake that strategic plan.
Yeah.
So it's a long-term planning document, and I think we have to be very careful as to what we bite off. How much can we do in the space of economic development? How much can we do in the space of youth? How much can we do in the space of running sporting facilities? How much can we do in the space of all these other things? We've got a yard full of plant and equipment that requires good, competent, well-paid, efficient, skillful operators.
Yeah.
I think there's some real key areas that we need to aim up on, and there's other areas that we're dabbling in that I don't know whether we're in a crowded space, and they take care of themselves anyway. I've always found that the business community and people in general in the country are very very entrepreneurial, and they're always looking for opportunities to start a new business or to create something that doesn't already exist. So the idea that a government paid officer or a council paid individual can go through the process and actually attract businesses to town, what carrots are they dangling? What are they going to,
Yeah.
so.
I mean, look, I mentioned it. I'd love to absolutely hack the bejesus out of any red and green tape I can find, and I have to go through the
That's
accounts.
what I mean. But like,
shred. I mean, look, I did a post the other day, and a very, very well-known billionaire in Australia, Sam Kennard, liked what I put forward. It's Kennard's storage, which I thought was a nice compliment that he liked what I'd been suggesting. He's obviously not a dunce. He's a certified billionaire who owns a massive, massive business, and I'll give him a ring later in the week and see what he liked about it and what sort of ideas he may have for getting some, business going in the local area, and what would perhaps motivate companies like that to come out here. That isn't just, here's money, we'll give you money. Okay, maybe we give you and again, the broad strokes. Do we give rate breaks, because we can't give tax breaks? Councils don't have that authority for any businesses that employ X amount of people. Do we have other certain things that we may or may not be able to do for businesses that bring X amount of employees to town, or employ X amount of locals, or, is there ways to do it? Now, I don't know off the top of my head, but I think they're great ways to potentially incentivize.
Yeah, and I think business takes care of business, and it doesn't need government.
No, the less government involved, the better.
Yeah, every time they put in a subsidy or they prop up a non-profitable business, they create a unevenness, they create a distortion. Then that distortion needs legislation to balance it up. It's never the pure capitalist model where, like, the only reason I bought my business at Temora was because there was a identified need, and we've been able to exist here for 24 years, servicing the community because there was a need.
Yep.
Simple. We had the product, they had the need, it works.
Yep.
So you don't need a council officer
telling you which businesses to come to town.
And there's been businesses that have opened there's been hundreds of businesses that have opened and closed in that time frame.
Of course.
So people will identify the need, people will risk their own money, and no one works harder than someone who's got a mortgage on their house, that if their business falls over, they're going to lose their house.
Absolutely.
And no one in a government department can approximate that pressure, or,
because no matter what goes on, they get paid Monday.
Yes.
Or Tuesday, whatever day.
They never, whatever costs, they just send the
bill up,
account.
send the bill up, and it gets paid. So there's a hell of a lot more.
There's a fair bit of stuff there.
Yeah, there's a lot there to think about, and again, there's no magic bullet. There are processes, and it's going to, nothing's going to fix anything in one day. But I personally, look, Councillor Irvine will get my number one vote on when I go in there to vote.
Thanks. No, you can vote for yourself. I'd vote for Dean McRae.
I've got enough problems.
You're allowed.
I could, but no, I wouldn't.
If you're going to put yourself forward, I reckon you owe yourself. If you can't vote for yourself, son, how do you expect anyone else to vote?
Well, I don't expect anybody else to vote. Have you seen me do anything political going, I want you to vote for me? What I've done is, I feel like this
is the first election you've actually gone in where you're a realistic chance of being elected.
Yeah, but look, that's neither here nor there. The point for me has always been about potentially bringing some different ideas, and I know I got some different ideas. It's potentially about potentially offering a support base for councillors who I believe are sort of on the up and up and doing some good work. Not saying that all the others aren't on the up and up. I'm just saying that I believe you've been on the up and up and you've lacked support. And I also really feel, if I'm in the room, and arguably I am a loose cannon, so when people throw out silly insults, it's like, have you been paying any attention? But if I'm in that room, everybody will know that they're going to be held accountable if they come out with some wild shit, or if they do something that I don't agree with. Doesn't mean that what I disagree with or agree with is always right or wrong. What it means, though, is I have no problem whatsoever in challenging what I think on whatever basis,
and demanding that they justify their position.
That's right, absolutely.
So look, realistically, I certainly have got 1,000 things that I enjoy doing much more than council work, but it's something that I identified that there was certain areas of it that I wasn't satisfied with, and I thought they could be improved. I think I'm well on the way to improving those things, and I think that this next term of council is going to be very interesting, very exciting. Hopefully, I get an opportunity to influence that. If I don't, well, there'll be some pastimes of mine that I just engage in a bit more.
You'll get back to your hobbies.
Yeah.
Have you got hobbies? Are you allowed to have hobbies?
I've got tons of hobbies. I got stuff. I do stuff all the time. I've got
You do not. You just do council shit all day.
No. I've got a very full and productive life. So, and there's a lot of things that certainly you have to squeeze council in around. So, anyway, that's where we're at.
It's a fun hobby.
But look, don't believe the hype. Make sure everything that you get told, you go and check. There's going to be a fair bit of misinformation flying around over the next week. So if there's something you need some clarification on, give us a ring.
Yeah.
Feel free, because that's what we're here for. And yeah, just vote with your hearts and your heads. And
well, vote for whoever you like. I reckon you're grown up, make your own decision, choose who you want. But when you choose it, that's what you get. You know, you can't vote for whoever and then get the shits that your vote doesn't count or things aren't going your way. And if you've got the balls, I recommend you think about getting lined up for the next go round.
That's right, 4 years time.
4 years time.
Another election.
That's it. I already think of 4 years ahead.
Put it up.
Don't be shy. And look, everyone have a great week. We'll go do this again Thursday night. 7:30.
Yep.
And then it's game day.
Game day.
Have a good weekend. Or have a good rest of your week.